Hey guys, welcome back to The Art of Craftsmanship. My name is Dustin, and today is part 3 of our knife build along. Now I'm following along with the Knife Talk podcast guys for building along. They're doing a really awesome job, and they thought it was just a great idea to do a build along and do this process where you can build, we can build, and then by the end everyone's got a knife, even if it's your first time making a knife or your 100th time making a knife. So we're doing our build along on the channel because I thought it would just be a great idea to give you guys another visual to go along with Knife Talk podcasts. And I really encourage you guys to build along with us. And there are a few people who are building along with us and have been posting some pictures on Instagram. So I'm gonna shout them out real quick. We have 4 guys that I could follow along with specifically, and if there are more out there, I'll make sure I get to you as well. We have HeelHound34. He's doing a really good job. He actually jumped forward and finished his knife already, but he was really excited about it, so you can't blame him. Brian House at house_work. Check him out. He's actually doing a really cool video, and he's doing the knife. He's building along, following our channel, but also following along with Knife Talk and building it with his 2 sons. So definitely check it out. He's doing a video on his channel, which is Housework on YouTube. So definitely go check him out. And then the last 2 guys are Chris R. Ransom 74, who started his, and then also at rdale 88. Both guys have contacted me and said they're starting it and they're going to get some more pictures up. If you are following along and I didn't say your name, it's because I haven't been able to find pictures of what you're working on. And I'd love to see your work and I'd love to comment. So the best way you can do that I can find it, is make sure you put the hashtag The Art of Craftsmanship BA for build along. So today in the shop, we're going to be working on our bevels. Now, when you're grinding bevels, you may want to do it by hand. You may want to use a jig. I think both ways are perfectly awesome and fine. There's some talk about what's right and what's wrong and what's easy and what's hard. I think that is all just nonsense. If you are making something for your own satisfaction, you're doing it for you yourself or for someone and they're happy with the product and you found a way to make it that makes you satisfied, that's what's most important. So as long as you guys are getting in the shop and you're making stuff and you're putting some time and effort into making the best that you can make, that's what's important. So definitely get out in the shop and build the way you build. So I'll be using a bevel grinding jig, just a piece of angle iron that I'll clamp this to. And I have my tool rest on my grinder. I can actually tip back so that way I can set it to the angle I want. And so I'll set this to the correct angle and I'll grind my bevels. But the first thing we want to do when we get started is I actually want to grind off the flats of both sides so I have nice and clean flats. That way I can start grinding my bevels and I can wash my line to make sure that everything is nice and even. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to clean off the forged decarb that's on the edge right now because I want to just have a nice clean edge so that way I can lay down my blue marker and then I'll come back and I'll scribe a center line down the edge. That way when I'm grinding my bevels, I'll know where to grind to, so that way they're coming to the very middle. I'm using a standard woodworking marking gauge so I can scribe down the center of this line, and this will just scratch into my marker. So I always scribe on one side and then flip over your knife and scribe again from the other side. What that'll do is create 2 lines, and the direct center between those 2 lines is where your center of your bevel should go. With the bevel grinding jig that I'm going to use, I'm going to set up my work rest to 10 degrees. So I'll grind a 10-degree bevel on one side, and then I'll grind a 10-degree bevel on the other side, and it'll give me a full 20-degree angle. And what that'll do is that just gives me that strong angle on the edge at 20 degrees. Now this is going to be a Scandinavian grind, which means there's one bevel that goes all the way to the edge. There's no primary cutting bevel that's different from the main bevel. So I'll be grinding that down, and a standard Scandi grind is anywhere between 25, 27, 20 or so. So I'm going on the thinner side just because I want my bevels to go a little bit deeper on the actual blade. I just want to remind you guys that this blade is already heat treated and hardened and tempered, so I have to be really, really careful. You'll notice that I'll be quenching this all the time. Maybe at the most 2 passes on the grinder, especially early on when I'm using such a high grit belt. It's going to be heating up this blade super fast. So I'm going to quench my blade a lot, and if you're following along that way, just make sure you keep it quenched really often. You don't want to heat up that tip, especially on the tip. It can heat up really easily, and if you do that, you have to reheat treat your whole blade. So keep it cool, keep it in the water often, and you won't have to worry about it. You saw me just go through my first steps of my primary bevel grinding. Now I did all that with a 36 grit belt, so I'm gonna go through a few progressions of different grit belts. I'm gonna start with maybe an 80, since I started with 36, and then I'll go to a 150 and a 220, and then I have a few new surface conditioning belts, some Scotch-Brite belts, and I'll use those to finish off the bevels. Now I'll be doing all of my grinding on the grinder for my bevels, and we'll just work down through the grits. Whatever grits you have, if you have just 2 or 3 grits, just start with your roughest grit, go to your medium grit, go to your fine grit, and just make sure that as you're moving along, you're saving that very final grit to get that very fine edge, especially on a Scandi grind that's gonna have a 0 bevel. There's gonna be no little teeny secondary bevel right on that edge. All right, guys, well, thank you so much. This has been a really fun day in the shop. These bevels turned out really, really nice. I'm super happy with them. Got to work through my belt progressions and got down to that finishing belt, the Scotch-Brite belt, which is a very, very fine. And it just put a beautiful finish on this bevel. I'm super happy with it. The bevels are really nice and even on both sides. Using the jig works really well. And just, I couldn't be happier. And I'm, hope that you guys were able to follow along, give you enough information on what I do to grind bevels and the tricks that you could see me doing throughout that process. And also just make sure that if you are building along, again, I'd love to see your work. So make sure you hashtag me at the Art of Craftsmanship BA for the build along, or just hashtag the Art of Craftsmanship. If you put your work up there, hashtag me in there, I'll follow along. I'd love to see your work, and I'd love to shout you out in the next video. So make sure you guys don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Check us out over on Patreon if you want to support us there, and we'll see you in the next video.